Welcome, Mr. Twitty. Good to have you here this morning.
Well, good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Barry. Just wanted to, they've asked me the last couple of years to come in, and this is a particularly unusual year, so makes even more sense to address you all. A year ago at this time, our crystal ball looked extremely cloudy when we were trying to figure out what values were going to look like. And, as soon as the pandemic set in and we all vacated the county, I was getting calls from commissioners and city managers and mayors about what the impacts were going to be. And we started analyzing it right away. And we were trying to be conservative at the same time, but there were so many unknowns that we couldn't even, just so many moving parts, and it was changing every day. So we've been able to ride through it now. We've obviously watched the good fortune of our residential market in Pinellas County and really around the country. The pandemic created a big shakeup and a lot of movement, and a lot of that movement has been south and has benefited our county. That has helped to stave off the commercial impacts that we are seeing. So there are some COVID-impacted commercial properties and businesses, and we are addressing those in our analysis. But we are cautiously optimistic that we would still be on the positive side, and it's actually better than we initially thought. So we think the values are going to be, from the general fund perspective, countywide in the 5.5% or better range. So that is a good number. And we're still doing some refinement. To give you, especially our newer commissioners that may not know all the timeline of our value certifications from our perspective, as of June 1, we deliver value estimates to all the taxing authorities. And again, those are estimates. Those don't go to Department of Revenue at that point. A month later, as of July 1, I'll certify the roll. That will go to the Department of Revenue and also the taxing authorities again. And that will be the tax roll that you all will work from for budget perspective, or from a budget perspective. So that roll is called the preliminary tax roll. And then later, we'll do the interim tax roll that will also be certified, and that will be after trim time and before the tax collector sends out bills. And then obviously final roll certification won't even happen until next year, and that will be after Value Adjustment Board. So first, I want to give a quick shout out to my team at the Property Appraiser's Office. Many people don't realize what we actually do there. It's a pretty sizable organization with a lot of moving parts. We've got, a great brains there and a lot of hard workers. And so everything from customer service to mapping to administering exemptions, and then obviously a lot of appraisal work. So we're not only appraising about 436,000 parcels of real estate as of January 1 each year, but we're also handling all the business equipment. So that's about 60,000 accounts. About 15,000 of those are taxable. Those are the ones that exceed the $25,000 exemption. Let's see. I wanted to give you a little update on new construction. So the last 3 years, we've flirted with about $1 billion of new construction countywide. The bulk of that, well, I shouldn't say the jurisdiction with the most is always the city of St. Pete. I think last year they were around $400 million. This year they're going to be likely around $300 million. So the numbers for new construction this year are closer to, where did I put it? Closer to $800 million overall countywide. And that is broken down. About 51% is residential, 27% is multifamily rental apartment, 22% is commercial. So, and that's been very consistent the last several years, that balance between those new construction elements. And to give you a little historical perspective, because a lot of times I've presented a chart that shows the last peak and the trough we went through. And just to give you some perspective on those numbers, so our taxable values increased 60% over the past 9 years. Since it bottomed out in 2012. So that's an average of about 6.5% to 7% a year. And our values are up over 20% since the last peak in 2007. A lot of people are always curious about where we are from that last peak. So we're up 20% from there. So, and that was 14 years ago now. It's hard to believe it was that far back. So, but that is really only a movement of about 1.5% a year from that last peak. However, we arrived at that last peak in kind of a false way. We overheated the market and it spiked up in a way that it shouldn't have. So we've come to a spot in our market more naturally. Obviously, this year we have had some heating up with all the out-of-state buyers coming in. Our data is telling us that about a third of all the buyers coming into our market area are from out of state. The surveys I've had of brokers have actually, word of mouth is they say 50%, but when we actually look at the numbers, it looks like it's about a third.
A third of the buyers are from out of state.
Yes.
Mr.
And
Twitty?
yes.
Mr. Chair, if I may?
Yes, go ahead.
Do you have data on how much of those buyers, how many of those buyers are international?
We do. It's not a giant percentage.
Okay.
I would have to look into it a little deeper to give you some actual numbers. We did that study a few years back, but
I was just curious.
well, this year was probably